Yo, what is up, you guys? So in today's video, we're going to talk about some cool perk that we can do inside of Sylenth. So it's kind of like, it could work in genres like tech or deep house, but really it's just awesome perks. So I'll play a little clip of what this is first off. So this is it right here. Alright, so that's just a little preview right there, and we'll just go ahead and make this. And if you're wondering what this sound is right here, this one right here, that's from a tutorial I did last week. So last week I did a massive tutorial called explaining bypass mod, and in that video I gave out 14 massive patches, like atmospheres and pads. So this is the screen's Atmos. So because I could sense that somebody would ask me what that is, I'll just go ahead and tell you what it is. So let's get into the Sylenth part of this. So let me go ahead and just kind of fix the screen a little bit. Let's zoom in a little bit on Sylenth, make it a little easier for you guys to see. All right, cool. So I would normally initialize a new patch and just start making it, but this one is kind of very specific. So if I was just, remaking or making another techie kind of patch, like a percussive patch, I would probably, it would sound different from this. So we're gonna have to do this one exactly the way it is. And so let's just go menu, initialize, preset, and let's just set mono legato. Let's go to our Pormento time, set that to 162 or whatever you prefer. And I like to set it to slide as well. So let's start off in Oscillator 1 in part A. So in part A, we're gonna just set this to a Q pulse, which lends itself pretty well for most percussive type things because it has such a good attack on it. And we're gonna set that to 8 voices. Retrig will be on, so that way every time we play a new note, it will start from the same place and not just start from some random spot in the wave. So we'll set the detune also to 2.43, and let's continue to the amp envelope A. So this is kind of a weird envelope settings for something that's supposed to be percussive and short. So we have full sustain on this all the way up. Release is at 3.20. and decay is at 2.18. So normally with most percussive things, you would have very little sustain, no release, and a little bit of decay. And so we're just going to shape it a little bit later with the filter cutoff. So we're going to now go to the next oscillator, so oscillator 2A or A2, and we're going to bring this down 2 octaves and bring it up to +7. So that's just something that I like to do with sine waves and other types of square waves and sometimes saws, because it makes a nice, interesting, it kind of, adding in that 7th in there just adds more harmonics in a weird way, and it just has a nice blend, especially when you mix it low. So you see the volume is at 0.81. We have invert on the sine wave. 1 voice is all we need, and no stereo. So we're bringing the stereo all the way down so that way it's just mono as possible, and we'll have more room on the sides and in the wide stereo image to place our other oscillators. So no retrig on this. We want this to just kind of do its thing. It doesn't have to retrigger with everything else. So let's go filter A now. And we're going to set this to a bandpass, which works really well for low end bass stuff, especially when you modulate and add envelopes and Lfos to the filter, especially with the low end stuff, you can get very acidic-y sort of things. So we're going to bring this to bandpass, 24 dB slope, so we keep it narrow. We're going to put the drive to 1.81, reso straight down the middle, so pretty high reso, 5.19, and cutoff will be at 24.07 hertz. So let's do our main filter control since we're talking about filters anyways. So we're going to turn on a little bit of warm drive, get that key track working at 1.24, reso at 1.81, and our cutoff at 7.01 hertz. So let's go to part B. Let's just keep it on oscillators and such. So before we go part B, actually, let's just copy filter A so we can paste it into B. So you can copy and paste most of these kind of same oscillators and filters and envelopes if there's a copy paste above it. So now we'll just go into part B. We'll paste that same filter settings, and we'll bring the drive down just a bit to 1.43. Everything else is the same. And I clicked on it just in case it wasn't, so you can compare, but it's the same. And now we're gonna go to the first oscillator in part B, and we're gonna set this to 3 voices, tri-saw, and retrig is on. So we want oscillators 1 of part B and A to retrigger, and so that way they're gonna be blended more together. And the other oscillator that we set down to mono is just gonna be doing its own thing, sorta. But all while blending with everything else. So we're gonna put the detune to this we're gonna bring it up pretty high, so around 5.76. So that's why we don't have, I'm not cranking this up to 8 voices immediately. You know, I wanted to have it very detuned, but I didn't want it to be that very obvious detune. So, you know, less voices, you can detune more subtly. So that's something I like to do. And for the amp envelope here, we're just gonna bring that sustain up all the way. No release, no decay, and a little bit of attack. Actually, attack, decay, and release are where they are by default. And our sustain is all the way up. And we're not using that other oscillator. You can maybe add another sine wave if you want, bring it down pretty low. So long as you bring down the stereo, if that's up to you. I'm not going to do that. And so let's go through the center effects like distortion, reverb, and compression, and then we'll end on the modulation and Lfos. So a big part of this also is just a little bit of distortion. So I really like decimate in most cases, but we needed something that is a little bit more crunchier. So we're going to overdrive this at full amount, and we're going to bring the dry wet down to 31%. So if you play this higher up, I suppose you can bring the dry wet up to 100%, and it sounds really awesome. But when you play this really low or in a lower octave, the distortion really starts to get it starts to sound very artifacty and very crappy. So maybe if you want, don't use this distortion, use another overdrive or some sort of bit crusher and some sort of other fancy distortion plugin. That might be your best way to go. But since I'm making a big Sylenth bank of like 300 presets for my website, I try to make these each patch as finished sounding as possible. So I added a little bit of overdrive, and I was really debating whether to have it up all the way or not. So that's up to you. Let's go reverb. So a little bit of reverb is good to add it, to put it in a space, sorta. So again, I always recommend using third-party reverbs, distortions, and compression and all that. So all these effects, you're better off doing it outside of Sylenth, but Sylenth is pretty good in general to have this stuff. So we're gonna bring that dry wet to 12%, damp all the way down, pre-delay at 37 milliseconds, and our size is where it's at by default. And the compression settings, I just have it on. So I just turned it on. Usually I have a ratio of 5, and I bring the threshold up slightly more and a little bit more release, but you know, I didn't do that this time. So now let's get to the modulation, the mod envelopes. So we're going to select our cutoff A and B and our reso A and B. So because we're using band passes, really the best way to use band passes is always just to add envelopes or some sort of modulation to get it moving, and it really creates the coolest stuff like that. So we're going to select both of those. Cutoff amount will be 3.62. Reso will be negative 3.05. And our envelope settings, our attack is where is all the way down. Our decay is 2.64. Sustain all the way down. And release is 1.55. And if I'm going too fast, of course, just pause. Or some people tell me they watch videos with subtitles on, and I don't know how that happens. I don't put subtitles, but I've watched a video with subtitles, and it's really funny because it doesn't get everything right. So that's fun to see. And of course, we're going to select the pitch A and B. So the next 3 things I'm about to show you in Mod Envelope 2 and LFO 1 and 2, these are things I do in all types of different patches, and even I do it in different synths, and these are just like little tricks of, you know, sound design. So sometimes when you want to have a bit more attack, you just select the pitch, and so in Sylenth that would be pitch A and B for both sides, and you just take a little amount of that, and then you just add a tiny amount of decay, and that enhances and makes a much sharper attack, because you're just using the pitch to quickly go up in pitch, and that sounds like an attack. So we're just going to add decay of 0.52, no sustain, release, or attack, and I have the amount of pitch at 0.29. You can have it much higher, but you know, I just wanted to be more subtle with it in this case, so I didn't add too much of it. you can definitely crank this all the way to the right, or sometimes you can also bring it into the negative, and you get some really interesting like quick down. It kind of like goes upward with the pitch, or it starts low and then goes up into the normal pitch, and it sounds kind of cool. So sometimes I do that on bass, and it sounds really interesting. So now the next two things are the Lfos. So this is another trick that I use a lot in Sylenth, especially on pads or leads. It sounds very nice when you take the phase of both sides and then you just add an LFO to it, and it kind of creates not a vibrato sort of thing, but it creates like this kind of hovering in a way, and it's just really cool. So select phase A and B, set the amount to 5.43. The gain will be at 3.05, rate at 1/16. If you prefer using the free so that's not synced to your DAW's BPM, you can do that and then set your rate to, you have much more options using a frequency than just setting it to a rate of like 1/16. But in this case, it was fine. So you could do that. And of course, you can use the sine wave. Let's go to LFO 2. So this is another thing I do in a lot of different synths. I like to take the pitch, and I like to sign an LFO, and I like to have the rate really fast, low gain, and then that way it moves the pitch so fast. It's not really like detuning it, but it's kind of more like it's just creating this edge because the pitch is just fluctuating so fast. So a pretty high rate at 1/128. The gain is around 3.24. The amount is at 0.29, and that's pitch A and B. So with this, you definitely don't want to apply a lot of it. So whereas with the envelope, we can apply as much pitch as we want for that attack. Right over here, we want to keep it really low. Like, we never want to go past 1 or -1. We always want to keep it pretty low, so that way the detuning isn't so obvious. And so that's really it. A really simple sound, and you kind of get the idea of the kind of percussion that can be made with this. And I have some more examples. Like I said, I'm working on a bank of like 320 presets for like $10 for you guys. So hopefully by next month I'll be done with that. I've been working on it for so long. So I'll be really happy once I'm done with it. So I'll just kind of play you some more stuff, but that's really the end of the video, you guys. So thanks guys for watching. Let's play some more percussive sounds. Alright, so I guess I just showed you a few. I can't show off too much yet. I still am tweaking everything like crazy. So thanks guys for watching, and of course, lates.